and those who follow in his footsteps till the last day. Last time we stopped at you were,
Page 70? Page 70?
yeah, let me check. Excuse me. Yes. Yes, we are in page. We are still talking about al-majaz and al-haqiqa, haqiqa and majaz, and we stopped at 73, page 73 actually. Okay. Just go over what we have taken last time. Okay. And mainly he said in footnote, or before the footnote, he said there are three trends of the ulama. Okay. Starting page 69 if you want to follow.
Right.
Sorry, 68 even. He said the page 60, 69, 68. He said kalam is also divided into haqiqa and majaz. Okay. And he mentioned the scholars and their what was their opinion with regard to this. And he said we can categorize them or divide them into three groups. The ulama who held the opinion that majaz does not exist, neither in the Arabic language nor in the Quran. And among the scholars who hold this opinion is Abu Ishaq al-Isfaraini, Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. Those are the, from the Hanbali school of thought. Also supported this view in the Kitab al-Iman. Ibn Taymiyyah writes, the division of words into haqiqa and majaz is an innovation which arose after the first 3 centuries. None of the early scholars spoke about it, nor those who sincerely followed them, nor any of the famous scholars like Imam Malik, Thawri, Lawza'i, Abu Hanifa, and the Shafi'i, rahimahumullah jami'an. Neither did the classical scholars of Arabic language and grammar mention it. He said like Al-Khalil, Sibawayh, Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, and others. His quote is ended here. He further stated, and even Al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, who was the first to introduce kalam in Usool al-Fiqh. Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he, in his book Usool al-Fiqh, and he was the first one to talk about, and as we said, he is the one who combined Usool al-Fiqh, the Usool for al-Fiqh, and he wrote about al-kalam, the speech, and the Arabic composition of sentences in Arabic and how it is in his book. And he did not, as Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioned here, did not make such a division, nor did he mention the words haqiqa or majaz. And this words has not been known from the early generations and righteous predecessors. So that's why those ulama said, first of all, they said if it was not mentioned at these early, stages of ilm and knowledge and in pre-Islamic era, then who formulates this haqiqa and majaz? Unfortunately, it was done by the deviant sects as to reject, in a new way, and indirectly, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He further said, number 2 is some scholars say that there is no majaz in the Quran only, but there is in the Arabic language. According to the book Kitab al-Iman, this is the opinion of Abu Hassan al-Jazari and Ibn Humayd from the Hanbali madhab, and Muhammad ibn Khuwaiz Miqdad from the Maliki madhab, and Dawood al-Zahiri and his son Abu Bakr. And the third who say there is a majaz in the Arabic language as well as in the Quran. And no doubt, those who said there is no majaz in the Quran, but there is in Arabic, it it is a conflicting, thing, because if you approve it in Arabic, you must, and the Quran is in Arabic language, it would be said. That's why the third people said there is majaz in both Quran and Arabic. And this is the opinion of Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la ibn Aqil Hanbali, Abu al-Khattab, and others from the Hanbali school of thought. Ibn Qudama, rahimahullah, said in his book Rawdat al-Nadhir, gives references to this opinion. And Zarkashi, in his book Al-Burhan fi Ulum al-Quran, ascribed this opinion to the majority of scholars. But as we said, those majority of scholars, in the previous generations from Imam Shafi'i back and their students, their grand students, there is nothing like that. There is nothing mentioned like that. He mentioned here in the footnote 101, he said, he spoke about the ayah in Surah Al-Kahf, Jidaran yuridu yanqad, a wall which wanted to fall. And he said this is a majaz, because the wall cannot be perceived and conceived to have, a desire or to have an intention to do things. It's a non-living being. But as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He did make us living, He could have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created these in certain way, to the extent that the Messenger used to say, before he was commissioned as a prophet, he used to pass by a stone or a rock that used to greet him, used to say, Assalamu alaikum to the Messenger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to him, and he has the keys of everything, and here, this wall which was about to fall, whether it was, was having a desire to fall due to the way it was built, or due to the time that had surpassed, or to the, the movement of earth or earthquakes, but we know that this is something that can be. Why we would say that here it is majaz? No, it could have an intention. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it, fitting to it. Okay, it's not like humans. Huh? Again, we say every creature has what befits it, or what befits his situation. Supreme example for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His will is unlike any other will. Okay, and so on. He mentioned here, affirming majaz does not necessitate explaining away the divine attributes or negating them. But again, he said, based on what was previously mentioned, the Quranic ayat can be divided in two groups. One group in which majaz is not allowed, to enter, or to be perceived, or to be visualized. One, these are the ayat of the divine attributes. Those ulama who said so, some they have their own school, but as we said, it's better to say the usage of the words and the context will define what's meant. Okay, in the ayah number 17, 24, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Isra, وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, and mercifully lower for them the wing of humility, or lower the wing of humility to them. Okay. No doubt that we know human being doesn't have, a wing like the wing of the birds. So those people, they said it is used here as a metaphor or as figurative meaning. But we know that also, the hands of the birds are actually turned into wing, and the two sides of human being hands could be like, the wings. Okay, so we know, because a human being doesn't have a wing, the meaning here is to be humble, and to humble oneself for them. Okay, he mentioned also the word al-ghahit, but this is as will come with us. It has been a general and common term, general, يعني, what you can say, عرف عامي, or the masses have known al-ghait to be defecation, while al-ghait in Arabic language means the lower, very lowly place. Okay, المكان المطمئن. مطمئن من الأرض means what's very low. Okay, down, that can be like the valleys is called, and from that is al-Ghouta in Dimashq, the place of al-Ghouta. Right. He said in beige, let's go to our class today. If you can read, Sheikh.
Yes, Sheikh. I'll read from page number 73, inshallah.
Yes, read. Go over it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Page number 73. We will briefly explain the divisions of kalam into haqiqa and majaz, according to those who make this distinction. The haqiqa means actual meaning. Haqiqa linguistically is taken from the word haqq, meaning established, firm. Technically, it refers to a word used according to its original meaning in conversation. For example, the word lion refers to a ferocious animal, and sun refers to the bright star, and so on. The phrase in conversation divides haqiqa into three categories: lughawiyya, urfiyya, and shar'iyya. Number one, haqiqa lughawiyya. That means lexical haqiqa. It is the use of a word according to its original meaning given by the language. For example, the word lion refers to a carnivorous animal. Number two, haqiqa urfiyya, which is customary. It refers to the customary usage of a word culturally or technically. This category can be further subdivided into two classes: amma, which is general, and khassa, which is specific. Urfiya amma, this subcategory refers to a situation where only a part of the original meaning of a word is customarily used, or when only its figurative meaning is used customarily by the majority of native speakers of the language. In both cases, the customary usage takes precedence over the original meaning. An example of customary usage limiting the general meaning of a word can be found in the word dabba. Originally, this word referred to all creatures that crawl on the surface of the earth. But this word is now confined to four-footed animals by customary usage. The word gha'it, human excrement, is a good example of word whose original meaning, a calm place on the ground, is unknown to most people due to the long-standing widespread usage of its figurative meaning. If someone used it today in its original sense, they would be misunderstood. Likewise, the word ravia, which originally referred to a camel on which water is carried, today its figurative meaning, a haversack or a bag, is what is understood.
or maybe better to say water skin.
Water skin.
Yeah, mizwada is water skin. Haversack is for everything. And in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when they were heading, out of Medina, and the water was very scarce, he asked the Sahaba to look for water, and they found a woman, who was a polythist, and this hadith is muttafaqun alayh, and they found her, and they asked her about water, and she said, it's a bit far. So they asked her to come with them to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ, she had mizwadatain, or three, I guess, on her camel, and the Prophet ﷺ, took that, and he ﷺ, prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or invoked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessings, and then the Sahaba got, they filled all of their water skins with water, and they drank, and they left her water skins, completely full. And the Prophet ﷺ told her that, we haven't taken anything. And when she went to her people, and the Prophet ﷺ, I guess, he rewarded her with some of the food stuff they used to have. And when she went back to her, people, she said, I came from the, the greatest magician, or, a prophet, okay, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no doubt that he was a prophet. Yes.
Urfiya khasa, specific usage, the special terminology used by specific groups, such as the technical terms of Arabic grammarians like raf and adawat al-jar, etc., which they have given
and
specific.
Yes, sorry. حقيقة عرفية خاصة is very specific, and this is usually a terminology for those in a field of language, like for the grammaticals or grammarians in Arabic, the rafa'. الرفع in their language, or in their urf, in their terminology, let's say terminology, is not like a rafa' we know to lift something up, okay? Rather, rafa' means to have dhamma on something. Adawatul jar. If you ask, for example, a person who works in cultivation, what are the adawatul jar? He would say the tractor, okay? He won't say it is in pronouns like fi and ila and ala and so on, okay? Why? Because this is, a terminology for the specific, field, okay? Yes.
So you like to explain from the beginning, sir, what we did until now?
Right. It's better. Okay. So here he said, he's talking about al-haqiqa. And let's go again to mention that these, categorization of matters, it is for clarification. I know it's a bit hard, sometimes for a person to digest, or he says, why all of these? We have to learn this, so nobody, first of all, we should know the basis of things and how it evolved, and why those people talked about something, called haqiqa. And it's due to the fact that they found that the terms used differs from context to context, okay? And for example, as-salah in Islam is different that, and if we call it prayers in English, and the salah for Nasara, prayers for Nasara is different, okay? So salah for Muslims, it has its meaning. As-salah for the Arabs, okay? For the Arabs before Islam, it is known to be only supplication, dua, invocation. And even prayers in English means dua. But when Islam came, it transforms all of these lexical, or we can say linguistic meaning to a new, lexical or a new terminology, technical terminology for Sharia. So whenever a Muslim is studying a field of science, like for example, fiqh, he has to realize that when, he has to master the terminology of that field. This is what all of this about. It's a bit expounded, philosophical aspects of the words and of the, but it is, basis and its basics that the talib al-ilm, the knowledge or the seeker of knowledge, has to understand, fathom, and differentiate. Okay, because if you come to the context of Sharia, we should realize that the context of Sharia has its terminology. Okay, so talaq, for example, divorce. Divorce has its, its meaning in Sharia. But again, with that meaning comes also, the intentions. So we have to know and realize that intentions, is involved in realizing the full, what we can say, the full application of these, realities. For example, salah. If someone, for example, comes to salah pretending, showing off, as if he has not done salah in Sharia, because this salah is not valid. As you know, the Sharia defined that this salah should be done sincerely for the sake of Allah and in accordance, to the Prophet ﷺ teaching, to the Sunnah. So if one comes and does salah according to the Sunnah, yet his intention was showing off or pretending, or because he was forced to be in the realm, his salah is invalid, as if he has not done salah. Okay, for example, if we go back to some hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ to look into what does he mean by salah here. Okay, for example, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا صلاة لا وضوء لمن لم يذكر اسم الله عليه. There is no wudu for the one who does not provoke or mention the name of Allah on his wudu. The ulama has, took some trends here due to the fact that when the Prophet ﷺ said there is no salah, does it mean that there is no salah, valid? There is no salah in the context, in the meaning of Sharia, means it's not valid, or there is no salah complete and perfect. Sorry, there is no wudu. Sorry, the wudu here. There is no purity or purification or ritual purification valid. There is no ablution. Okay, that means the legal ablution valid for the one who does not provoke Allah's name on it. Is it invalid, or is it, to just nullify or negate the perfection? That's why they come to, when they concluded the fatwa here, they said, and this is the majority, that the salah is valid for the one who does wudu without mentioning the name of Allah on it. But his wudu is not as perfect as the one who mentions the name of Allah on it. Now, on the other side, some ulama, they said his wudu is invalid and he must redo the wudu and redo the salah due to the fact that understanding what does la salah means. Okay, so and they said either it is negation of the haqiqa shar'iyya, which is the reality in Sharia, which is validity, it goes to validity, or the haqiqa, the kamal, the kamal of urfiyya, which we know there is no salah complete or perfect, or is it, a reality? Is it a negation of reality that salah cannot happen in reality? And the third is impossible because a person can make salah without having proper wudu or wudu at all. Huh? And his salah won't be valid. Okay. But so this is exempted to say salah cannot be visualized without wudu. Okay. No, a person can go and make salah without wudu. And if he's a good Muslim, he would recall and remember and redo that salah. Or if he's a bad person, he would have, done salah in front of the people. But the salah will not be accepted at all. So this is why we have to understand these differences, okay? So al-haqiqa, the actual meaning, is the problem here again, it goes into what we mean by the haqiqa, okay? Is it what the language, what the people know in language, or is it what the people know in urf, customary, like in field of science? And then we go to the haqiqa urfiyya is divided into two parts. Urfiyya amma, like something all the people are accustomed to know that this is the meaning of this word, like dabba. A dabba in Arabic means anything that in وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. No ever, not ever crawling, thing on earth, whether it has four legs or without legs, like, snakes and others, or whatever creature, that, walk on earth, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, known and has decreed and subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted, its, its, what you can say, provision and مستودعها, its halls or its houses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has meant by dabba here everything, okay, whatever creature. But the people have now customary, but it was general sense, common sense, that this dabba means only the horses or like camels or like mules or donkeys, okay, on our faces. So this is the haqiqa urfiyya amma they got to realize. And like it is the ghayat, okay. Now, al-urfiyya al-khassa is, as we said, a more specific usage of this term. It's a terminology for a field, okay, like what we said, okay. Far, okay, is known to be what? To be the mouse. And for example, qala. If I said again, I just want you to feel the sense of the Arabic language, that sometimes one word might not connote a full meaning. You have to put it in a context so that we can realize, we can know, and know what's the real meaning of it, or the haqiqa of it. So if one, for example, say qala, qala means, someone says or said something, or someone who, took shelter and took a nap, qala, from qaylula. So qala by itself, it doesn't connote one meaning, okay? And this is a problem sometimes with those who divided, words into haqiqa and majaz, okay? Because like ras, okay, ras, head, is it the human being head, or is it the top of the mountain called head, or the chieftain or chief of the tribes, or the president? All of those are, or head of state, head of, establishment, head of office. So if you add it or link it or put it in a context, we would realize and come to recognize a meaning. So, and the haqiqa here, urfiyya will be known, okay, from the context, okay. So again, we say this so that a person would know. The third, he said, is حقيقة شرعية. You can go over it.
Yes, حقيقة شرعية, religious or Islamic. It is the usage of a word to connote a meaning specifically given to it by the religion. For example, Salah means a specific form of worship which begins with takbir and ends with taslim. Similarly, Iman means belief which includes verbal expression and action.
Yes.
I will read the footnote now, Sheikh.
Yes, go ahead.
Footnote number 102. Raf' literally means raising or lifting, as in the fiqh usage, Raf'ul yadain, that is raising both hands during formal prayer. In Arabic grammar, it refers to the nominative case indicated by the suffix un on other than verbs and prepositions. 103 adawat, instrument for adawatul jar, refers to particles which cause nouns and others to be in the genitive case jar, indicated by the suffix in, that is kasra. Such particles are known in English as prepositions. Footnote number 104, subject and predicate. 105, linguistically, salah means supplication, the same as dua. 106, the benefit of knowing the three divisions of the haqiqah is to understand each expression according to its appropriate actual meaning. So if a word is used by linguists, it's understood according to its linguistic meaning. And if used by a common people, it's understood according to the custom. And if used by legist, it's understood according to the Shari'i meaning. Would you like to explain, Sheikh?
Yes, yes. Here he wants to, he said, حقيقة شرعية, and as we mentioned, like Salah, Salah in Arabic language, and that's why, again, no doubt that every one of you have come across this in fiqh, where he would have two meanings for Salah, the meaning in language and the legal or technical meaning in Sharia, okay? And usually the technical meaning, has to be, really, it has to be proved through the context of Sharia. That's why, for example, when the ulama, they came to Salah, and they said in language it means a dua, and they said, out of, out of language, or out, in technical meaning, هي أفعال مخصوصة تبتدأ بالتكبير. Sorry, excuse me. Why it doesn't work? Okay. هي يعني the ulama, they said هي أقوال وأفعال مخصوصة. It is an actions and sayings specifically, or means specified in Sharia, defined in Sharia. It starts by takbir, Allahu Akbar, and it ends by taslim, by saying salam. And they said that, and it's better to be said along with that, it has been, or these actions are being done sincerely for the sake of Allah and in accordance to Sharia, or it is done, for, تقربا إلى Allah, okay, to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Excuse me, I opened the computer so that I can the name, the Sharia, okay, the Sharia meaning is very known from Sharia, like what I mentioned example last time when the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba about uh, the real muflis, and the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, answered that the real broke or the real pauper is the one who doesn't have money or wealth. Then the Prophet ﷺ, you know, turned into them and he said, rather the real, you know, pauper or the real bankrupt is the one who comes on the day of judgment with great deal of hasanat, of good deeds. Yet he would have done a lot of evil, that made him to lose all these hasanat, like the mountains of Tahama. These mountains we can see when we go, towards Taif. These are the mountains of Tahama, and you can think about how huge the whole mountains. Yet he will get all of these perished due to what evil and wickedness and harms he did to the people, and then it will be taken from their evil deeds, okay, and it will be put in his scales, and he will be taken to hellfire. At that stance, he will be, bankrupt. Bankrupt of what? Bankrupt of the good hasanat. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. This is a new definition for, for the bankruptcy, al-iflas, okay? أتدرون من المفلس? And the Prophet ﷺ started it by asking them a question. And this is again, one of the ways, to attract the attention of people. The Prophet ﷺ wants them to pay heed to what he wanted to say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, أتدرون من المفلس? So it's this, they told him, is the one who doesn't have dirham wala dinar, the person who doesn't have, as we say now, riyals, nor, halalas, okay? So, but the Prophet ﷺ had redefined it to have another meaning in according to Sharia. Like, the munafiq to the people before Islam, it had a meaning. And when Islam came, it has another meaning. Like the al-bakhil, the real miser, okay, or a stingy person is the person, in his presence, the messenger's name is mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he does not, pay heed to his name and say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, depriving himself from such great rewarding, blessing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted this ummah, and so on. So when we come to realize and recognize these meanings, we would know, what's the meaning in Sharia. For example, here he said, linguistically, salah means supplication, the same as dua. Okay, and even in English, prayer means, invocation. And yet, the meaning in Sharia is different. That's why a person needs to know. Like kalimat far. Far in Arabic means mouse, okay? Far means mouse, but it could be used as a verb to mean it boils, okay? And I recall that there was, a son in elementary school, and he was taught by a Syrian. And this Syrian, he had, on top of his, oven or burner, there was a kettle, and that kettle started boiling. And this, child, when he saw it, he exclaimed, "Far, far, far!" Means it boiled, it boiled, it boiled. The Syrian thought it is a real mouse, and he ran away. He got so scared, and he saw what it is, and he ran from the place. And he was pointing to the kettle. And this is a problem sometimes due to the fact that a person might recognize something differently than the speaker. That's why we say, and we go again to say, a word by itself doesn't have, you know, one real meaning, okay? Unless put in the context. In a context, we can realize what does it mean. He sent her the majaz, and we'll leave it, inshallah, to the next class. I'll just have you questions if you want. You have questions now. If you don't have questions, then inshallah we'll stop here. And next week, inshallah, we can carry on. The point upon the, and for the ulama who rejected the majaz, in absolute sense, is due to the fact that it was a new way for the deviant sects to deny and reject the meanings, okay, of what? The meanings of sifat, the descriptions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we mentioned last time, when we were reciting or we were making tafsir of Surah Al-Qalam, يوم يكشف عن ساق, and we said this word by itself, if there was no hadith linked to this, we would have, regarded it to have a general meaning here. But there's a hadith, and this hadith is authenticated by ulama, that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Sahih al-Bukhari, it's a hadith narrated by Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu. He said, سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And subhanallah, maybe the usage of the word سمعت here, he intended it. The Sahabi, may Allah be pleased with him, he didn't say قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said سمعت. I heard him. So he doesn't want, anyone to question, what he would say, whether he said this is, a figurative meaning you mentioned, or you reported the hadith in meaning, or you reported it on behalf of another person. Rather, the Sahabi wants to assure to the audience, or to those knowledge seekers, or to the people whom he was reporting the hadith, he said, سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. I heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم as saying, Allah will bring forth the severest hour, okay? And then all the believers, even here, they used the connotation of the meaning of saq, okay? And he said, يكشف ربنا عن ساقه فيسجد له كل مؤمن ومؤمنة ويبقى من كان يسجد في الدنيا رياء وسمعة فيذهب ليسجد فيعود ظهره طبقا واحدا. Actually, this is taken, some sentence taken from the hadith, of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, long hadith on the day of judgment, one of the scenes of the day of judgment. Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah made a title, or addressed this hadith in a chapter, saying, he put the verse or the ayah in Surah Al-Qalam, ayah number 42, chapter 68, يوم يكشف عن ساق. Remember the day when the shin shall be laid bare. And he mentioned that this hadith. In Arabic, when we say يكشف ربنا عن ساقه, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will uncover his shin. And we have to realize and recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, regards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the highest esteem. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is far removed, to be compared to the creatures. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he said so, we should realize and recognize that even the Sahaba would not think that Allah's saq is like ours or like any, beings, creatures, but he has what befits his majesty, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the Sahabi said, the, Allah will uncover his shin. So all believing men and women will therefore, prostrate themselves in front of Allah. They will make sujood. فَيَسْجُدُ لَهُ كُلُّ مُؤْمِنٍ وَمُؤْمِنَةٍ. And what would be left are those who used to, make sujood in this world, showing off, to be seen or to be known that they are Muslims, like the hypocrites, okay? And they would try to make sujood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make their, back bones as steadfast, one firm like a block, and he would actually want, to prostrate, and he will fall on his back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. And this hadith is, as we see, it's in Bukhari and it's authentic, but you will find some people who will take the context, take this hadith out of its context, and he will say, like in the translation in even sunnah.com, he mentioned that Allah will bring forth the severest hour. Okay, and then all the believers, men and women, will prostrate themselves before him, but there will remain those who used to prostrate in the world for showing off and for gaining good reputation. Such people will try to prostrate on the job, but their backs, will be as stiff as if it is, will be as stiff as if it is one bone, a single vertebra. Then, in the other narration, as I remember, that they will fall to their backsides. Again, when one, the changes the meaning here, it's a problem, because the Messenger ﷺ knows what does it mean, and it was never known from the Arabic context to say تكشف الحرب عن ساقها. No, تكشف الحرب عن ساقها. We know that war doesn't have shin, okay, and it cannot be, okay. And the ulama, they said the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if anything that we ascribe or Allah ascribes to himself or attributes to himself, if it is something that we could perceive as, a separate entity from Allah, or as an entity, if it is could be visualized as separate, then we should know that it's not description. Like naqatullah wa suqiyaha, like Baytullah, like the Rasulullah. Okay, we know he has his own entity, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored those things by ascribing them to him, Baytullah, Naqatullah, and so on, for honor. But if you think about Allah's hand, you cannot visualize a hand, separate from him, because we know hand, it's something we know physically can be. So bring an example for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like this, his shin, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and faith, and make it easy on us to fathom and understand his deen the right way. If you have questions, inshallah, you can ask. If there is no questions, we have finished. تفضل الشيخ عبد الحميد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
This, in Surah Al-Mu'minun, there is this فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا وَفَارَتْ النُّورِ. So this is the same spelling it is used for the mouse, or?
Again,
there is this ayah which in the
جاء أمرنا.
Mu'minun,
Yeah, but because
فجاء أمرنا.
Yeah.
The same spelling.
Yeah. أمرنا here means our order when it happens, when it takes place.
No, I'm talking about far. وفار التنور.
وفار, yes, it boils.
Yes.
Right. But some people, because due to the far, people will say, if you say far, now, that just a single word, everyone might understand it differently, okay? Let's say it's mouse. Is it the mouse?
Okay.
Or it is a verb, unless you put it in a context, okay? Right, Jazakallah khair. This is a good
right. So this word means here what? The boiling of the...
Yes, the boiling of tanur. Tanur, يعني Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a sign for Prophet Noah alayhi salam.
Noah
alayhi salam, that, a tanur is a place where fire is there. So if the water would boil out of it and come out of it, it's not something we know. So he made it a sign for him that he should go on board of the ship, that it is the time for the flood to take place.
Okay. Jazakallah khair.
Ameen wa iyyakum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, bless you all, increase us all in knowledge and faith, and make it easy on us to tread the path of righteousness. Allahumma. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Shams. Inshallah, next week we'll meet, inshallah, and we will talk about the majaz again. I'm sorry to talk a lot about majaz. At least we can understand when those people talk about majaz, we will have, the background on why on what basis they say this is majaz and this is haqiqah. Okay. We cannot say to them, don't speak about it at all to the deviant sects, but we have to say to them, what do you mean? Okay, by majaz here, okay? If they mean the majaz is a usage, this is different. But if they mean, as we said, it's to change the apparent meaning, to a qarina, which is not, a reason that's not legislated or known from the Arabic language, then we would say you are altering and distorting the meanings, as will come with us, inshallah, next week. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. اللهم نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نعوذ برضاك من سخطك وبمعافاتك من عقوبتك وبك منك لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. اللهم اصلح شأننا كله وانصر دينك وكتابك وسنة نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعبادك الصالحين، واجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين الموفقين في الدنيا والدين يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجذام ومن سيء الأسقام. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من زوال نعمتك وتحول عافيتك وفجاءة نقمتك وجميع سخطك. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا شيخ.
آمين وإياكم، آمين أجمعين.